Title, Sometimes Nothing, a machine for encountering the void. Sometimes we wait for nothing, and then sometimes nothing waits for us. Introduction, a phrase that turns. In 7 words followed by 7 more, the fragment titled Sometimes Nothing performs a slow, deliberate turn, the kind of turn that only something hidden in the machinery of language could make. Not a twist, but a hinge. It opens on a simple, even familiar scene, waiting for nothing. We've all done it. Whether in line, in life, in thought, or in prayer, we have waited without knowing what for. Or worse, we have known, and still it came to nothing. This first half offers a sigh of recognition. But then comes the second movement. And then sometimes nothing waits for us. Suddenly the phrase folds, inside out, top becomes bottom. Absence gains posture. The wait is mutual or adversarial. And that's where the trouble begins. Second, the paradox of nothing. Nothing is a famously slippery word. Grammatically, it wears the clothes of a noun, yet refers to no object. Ontologically, it stands for absence, yet appears in speech as if it were present. It is the original false positive, a placeholder that claims to point somewhere while pointing nowhere. But in this fragment, nothing does more than just sit there. It moves. It acts. We begin with, we wait for nothing. That is, we exert patience, hope, or persistence toward no reward. The sentence names a kind of self-defeating investment. But the second clause inverts that flow. Sometimes nothing waits for us. Here, nothing becomes the subject, and we are now the object. That alone deserves pause. The human, usually agent, usually actor, is demoted. Nothing now holds the stage, and we are what it wants, not to meet, not to greet, to wait for. But what kind of nothing has the patience to wait? What force sits at the edge of the day and waits? Treje null-driven systems. To imagine nothing as an actor is to posit a null-driven system, a condition where absence has agency. Philosophically, we've encountered these before. Death waits, oblivion hovers, silence presses, the void watches. All are negative spaces treated as powers, each haunts in its own way. This fragment installs itself in that lineage, but in minimalist form. It doesn't say death or silence, it just says nothing, and that is enough, because this isn't a ghost story, this is a device. Fourth, the zero-friction waiting machine. Let us call this fragment what it is, a zero-friction waiting machine. Its function to alter the felt weight of a pause by making it reciprocal. Its parts, a subject capable of waiting, we. An object that negates return, nothing. A reversal of those roles, nothing, subject, we, object. Its operation, when read aloud, the fragment first names your own futile anticipation, but then it names you as the object of another wait. The implication, something or someone is tracking your absence. The architecture, built for chill. This machine runs not on power but on implication. The engine is suggestion, the fuel, your mind's instinct to animate what's not there. Social functions in the field. There are at least 4 practical deployments of this phrase in the wild. Each one renders a different utility depending on how and where the phrase is spoken. First, as a confession, sometimes we wait for nothing. You're admitting futility, maybe even despair. Spoken quietly, it becomes a poem of exhaustion. The second half, and then sometimes nothing waits for us, makes it worse, but in a beautiful way, a mutual failure, a spiritual symmetry. Dusra, as a warning, imagine saying it to someone who is about to give up. You think you're done waiting? Sometimes nothing waits for us. Now the tone is stark, suggestive, sinister even. What lies on the other side of quitting? Something or nothing? And is it already waiting? Mundram, as a diagnosis, in reflective analysis, it can explain behavioral paralysis. It's not just that she waits for nothing. Nothing waits for her. This version draws attention to a loop of absence, a system where motivation and meaning have left the building and locked the door behind them. Nangavade, as a prayer. Yes, even this dark sentence can pray. To name absence as a waiting force is, bizarrely, to give it life. And once it lives, it can be asked to relent. Sixth, structural engineering. Let's look at how this phrase is built. Line 1, sometimes we wait for nothing, opens like a casual observation. The word sometimes softens the despair. It's not always. The phrase wait for nothing can be literal, no result, or philosophical, absence of meaning. Line 2, and then sometimes nothing waits for us. The repetition of sometimes makes it rhythmic, looping. The inversion of subject-object jolts the frame. Now, nothing is active, and we are passive. This reversal is what gives the phrase its eerie shimmer. It's not just poetry, it's spatial reorientation. It tricks your mental architecture into shifting what it thinks is behind you. Seventh, literary and philosophical echoes. This phrase belongs in a long tradition of thinkers who have dialogued with nothing. Søren Kierkegaard, he named the sickness unto death as despair, not over something, but over nothing. Samuel Beckett. Waiting for Godot is a masterclass in waiting for nothing, but even Beckett didn't have nothing wait back. Shakespeare, nothing will come of nothing. King Lear. But what if it does? What if nothing doesn't come but waits? Buddhist koans. What is your original face before your parents were born? That's another way of asking, what did nothing want from you before you got here? Eighth, an invitation to horror. To say nothing waits for us is to flirt with horror, not as gore, but as ontological unease, horror without event, the terror of being known by absence, the presence of negation, a spiritual stalker, a shadow without source. This is the creeping vibe of the phrase, but it never says this directly. It never names fear. That's the brilliance. It lets you supply the face. The phrase is blank. It wears your dread like a mask. Ninth, companion fragments, experimental prototypes. Sometimes something. Sometimes we wait for something. And then sometimes something waits for us. Presence makes a promise. The last wait. At the end of everything, you wait for no one, and no one waits for you. Null loop. We wait for what never comes. It waits because we do. Each of these emerges from sometimes nothing, like branches of a linguistic virus designed to colonize different dimensions of absence. X. Final thoughts. The device in your pocket. This is more than poetry. It's a mental device you can carry with you. Use it when you feel lost in time. You suspect the world has stopped moving toward you. You're waiting and unsure why. Or you want someone to feel what can't be said plainly. What it does, it collapses the illusion that nothing is neutral. It casts absence as active. It names the second dimension of waiting, the part we never see. That's what makes this a piece of technology. It installs a new perceptual field. You begin by reading it and end by seeing differently. 11th, closing. Sometimes we wait for nothing, and then sometimes nothing waits for us. You can read this as a resignation, or a warning, or a revelation. But what you cannot do is forget it. Once it enters you, it installs a recursive engine, one that replays itself during moments of pause, grief, stasis, and strange arrival, because it is, quite possibly, true. And truth, especially when wrapped in silence, has a long memory.